Hey, everybody. Welcome to City Beats. It's Efrem Smith back at you again. And man, do I have a guest on today. The preacher, the communicator par excellence from Mississippi to Southern California. He went from the deep South to the cow South.
Yes.
He is the founding senior pastor of Fellowship Monrovia. And really, I should be called Fellowship California because like they have multiple campuses and they're growing and they've done some innovative, unique things as a church, even through this COVID season. Incredible. My brother, my friend, Albert Tate.
My man.
What's up, man?
Doctor, what's happening?
Oh, man, I'm doing all right, man. This is great to have you on here.
It's so good to be here. It's like we're hanging out.
Yeah, so, man, people are going to say, man, he's really stepping his podcast game up now. At first I started with my cousins and, friends that just got out of jail. And,
hey, they got some good stories.
People on staff with me. Not to compare them with people that just got out of jail.
Sometimes
Bob
it's one and the
Valiant.
same.
I didn't mean to say it like that.
Hey.
But really, having you on is phenomenal. You're on this episode because you just recently preached at our church.
Yes, had a great time.
And you preached on the Sunday where we officially went from being the Midtown campus of Bayside Church. And, God used this ministry for a number of years as a campus of Bayside. But now we're on our own.
Doing your own thing, Midtown Church. Oh, man, it's so exciting.
So autonomous, urban, multi-ethnic church in the heart of Sacramento.
Yo.
And you're down there in the greater Los Angeles metroplex.
Right outside of Pasadena in Monrovia, California. Yep. So we love it.
Well, before we get into some other stuff, I usually start these episodes. I'm a big superhero film. I'm a big comic book fan.
Really?
And one of the reasons I talk about this is, unfortunately, soon after Denise and I were married, my parents' house, the house I grew up in, was broken into and set on fire. And so my dad comes home from work and the house is in flames, unfortunately. And I had this huge collection of comic books in the basement.
Oh, wow.
And I had a collection of baseball cards and football cards. And I mean, that wasn't the biggest loss.
Yeah.
But it was meaningful to me as a kid, growing up, because I was, if I shoveled snow in Minneapolis, if I was raking leaves and I got a little change, I went to this corner store, actually the same store George Floyd came out of.
Wow.
In Minneapolis. Like I grew up in that neighborhood.
That was your corner store.
Yes. So the store George Floyd came out of, and soon lost his life. That was a store, like I would shovel snow from my grandmother, rake leaves, she'd give me some money, or I'd, the neighbors, if I was doing, their yard, and then I'd go in that store and get like a comic book and some Twinkies. That was my thing. Some Twinkies, icy, and a comic book. And for $2, you could get all that. And so lost my comic books, but over the years as I got older, I just started collecting comic books again.
Really?
And then sometimes I preach at churches, and they might ask my wife when they're setting it all up, what's his hobbies, what's he into, and she'll put comic books. And every once in a while, I get blessed with comics. I love hanging out in comic stores.
Really?
And then now that we're in this age of like the Marvel cinematic universe.
Yes,
and the DC cinematic universe.
Yeah.
It's just like, so are you into superhero movies, comic books, anything like that?
This is so crazy, man. I didn't even know you had this passion. Man, I could not be less interested in comic books or superheroes. I don't know the difference between DC, Marvel, Disney, or Apple. I'm not into it at all. No, I was into Wakanda, obviously.
Yeah.
Or
Black Panther was phenomenal.
The Avengers. I watched the Avengers. I watched the what is it? The End Game.
End
Game. So Thanos.
Yeah.
I was rooting for him. I thought he was gonna pull it out at the end, but it didn't go well for him.
Okay. Well, since you brought up, Black Panther.
Yes.
And I have a theater background. You live in like the mecca of entertainment.
Yes.
And so we can at least land on Black Panther.
We can land on the Avengers. I'm conscious. I'm woke in the superhero game. I'm just not. I don't have any comic books or anything like that.
But speaking of Black Panther, and you being in the greater Los Angeles area.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was the COVID season and everything, but was there any closer reverberation that you felt when Chadwick Boseman passed last year?
Oh man, it was so devastating. You know, the thing that amazed me the most about Chadwick is he had cancer for a long time, but nobody knew it. And he worked extremely hard, did movies, and castmates didn't know it. He had a team of people that would be with him that would help massage his body and give him care in a way. Some of his castmates would later come out and say how they thought he was kind of a diva, but now realizing, wow, he was going through all of that. No one knew it.
So they think he was so
Just
arrogant,
right,
he would
right.
shoot
He
his
just
scene
got
and
all
just go
these-
back to his trailer.
Right.
But really,
right.
he was going to
Man,
dialysis.
he was going to, he was getting work
Or
done.
getting treatment.
They were giving him treatment, and then so his energy would stay up. I'm thinking some intentional massage kind of therapies and different things like that. But his work ethic was just so impressive. His commitment, his resolve was that he wanted to work and finish his work, and he didn't want to become a distraction. And I thought that was really notable. And so he died with superhero-like character as he played in Black Panther.
Yeah. I mean, this guy played Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, Jackie Robinson, Black Panther. Ended his, at least the last performance that we would see was Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Which was a powerful performance. You know, August Wilson has some Minnesota roots. So I'm from Minnesota, so I'm a big August Wilson fan. And staying in this arts realm, you're an amazing preacher. One of the best I've heard. I've been fortunate. You know, some of it, not that we're being too biased, but there is something about growing up in the African American church.
Some of the best preaching historically have been Black preachers. So, you know, it baffles me that they are not featured in homiletics classes.
Oh my goodness.
And seminaries and institutions. But anyway, we don't have to get off track there. But yeah, we've sat under some of the greatest preachers of our generation.
Yeah. And I just want to say this. I mean, of course it's gonna sound like I'm saying this just because I'm your friend and I know you well. But look, man, I grew up going, man, I want to preach like E.K. Bailey.
Yes.
Man, I want to preach like Gardner C.
Taylor. Yes.
Man,
yes.
I want, Samuel Proctor, James Forbes. You know what I mean? Like I grew up hearing these powerful African American preachers. And I just want to say, as far as I'm concerned, if I was going, where are the Gardner C. Taylors, the Charles Adams, the Samuel Proctors, the James Forbes of the day, I'd go, you should check out Fellowship Monrovia, and you're going to hear one of those types of preachers. You're a phenomenal communicator in our day. You need to be heard. You know your Bible well, your theology's sound, but you also are a courageous preacher. That's what I appreciate about you, is that there are great communicators that they won't courageously step into the issues of our day, but stay deeply rooted in the Bible. And so that's what I appreciate. I mean, there's probably hundreds to thousands of gifted preachers in America and beyond. But the way that you bring conviction, courage, and sound theology is amazing.
Man, bro. That's a lot coming from you, bro, because you are, I think, one of the best gifted communicators. I've seen you do stuff in rooms where my mouth would just be open. I just cannot believe it. So I really appreciate that, bro. And I think good preaching is so important. I think it's so important for our generation and the generation to come. And so I've given my life to it, and I'm so thankful for you, bro, and your investment in my life and your investment in my preaching. Yeah.
Where do you get your inspiration today? I mean, do you mainly just pay attention to preachers? Do you pay attention to, hip hop artists, actors, comedians? Like how? I mean, of course it's about prayer and being in the Word, but I mean sometimes we can over spiritualize our preaching influences. Where do you continue to get challenged and pushed as a preacher?
You know what? Normally I wouldn't even say this, but I'm gonna say it on here. So you got preaching theological training, biblical exegesis, proper exposition, all of that. But then there are just good communicators and storytellers
Yeah.
that are just good at what they do. That has nothing to do with spirituality. But they're just good at communicating. And I also think we can learn something from people like that as well. So this person, I don't recommend you go listen to them. They are as ungodly as the day is long. You ain't going to find theological prowess there. But this, I think, is one of the greatest communicators in our day, and that's Dave Chappelle.
Oh, no question.
Let me just tell you something. Dave Chappelle, the way he's able to communicate and tell a story and move people and say really politically hard charged things in a way to where people hear it and they laugh is a gift. Now, whether it's not about the content of what he's saying. And I know for some people it's really hard to disconnect the content from the method. But if we were just to look at his method, like he's so good at communication. You know, Anthony Bourdain.
Yes.
Commits suicide.
I remember this.
Dave Chappelle
this
walks out in his comedy special and he literally says, Anthony Bourdain committed suicide in a hotel, and people started laughing. Now you could say that that's the demonic forces of our world today. You could go there if you want to, but I just think he has a gift of saying difficult, challenging things in a way that makes you think and makes you laugh. And what Dave does, if you pay attention to it, and it's what preachers, it's a gift for a preacher. It's a great tool for a preacher. The laughter literally physically opens up your chest.
Yeah.
So for someone to physically laugh, there's something physically happening. Laughter is also good for your soul. So you're opening yourself up, you're exhaling, and then he'll say something hard and challenging that you probably would disagree with, but he forces you to reconsider it because he's done the due diligence of communicating and earning the right to open up your chest now to put something in it. I know that may be too much for some people, but he is an inspiring communicator.
Yeah. I probably shouldn't say this on the show. It used to be a time, this next name I'm going to say, it used to be a time you could get away with this and say this and it'd be no problem. But Bill Cosby. So
you really can't say that.
Right,
I got to leave the show now. He done lost his mind. Lord, take me out, blur my face.
Yeah, I don't even wear Coogee sweaters anymore.
Right.
You just can't.
But one of the greatest of all times. Like I watched some of his specials from back in the day. So, and I guess there's a theme here. You got Bill Cosby. Then I immediately think about Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
Their ability to tell stories and say hard things about race, about economics, about things, and a lot of things that we completely disagree with fundamentally as followers of Jesus Christ. But as far as the art form of storytelling and communication, Bill Cosby was one of the best.
I just think for some reason, I feel like you and I know I'm a little bit older than you, but I feel like you and I came up in this amazing era to be a preacher because, again, I was very fortunate as a kid. I was very fortunate to hear, when I was young, Tony Evans, Mark Rutledge, E.V. Hill. Like the church where I became a Christian, like E.V. Hill preached there, Tony Evans preached there, John Perkins, Madeline Mims preached there. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's just like incredible. But then I also, I was that kid that would go in the basement,
sneak down
and
put the album on,
put the Richard Pryor album on, put on George Carlin and listen to it, and try to put Downtown Low so my parents wouldn't always listen to it. So I'm hearing incredible preachers.
Yeah.
I'm hearing these comedians, and then I get the hip hop too.
Yeah.
I get to hear Eric B. and Rakim. I get to hear Big Daddy Kane. I get to hear Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul. And so I'm going, man, as you said, I mean, we're not trying to bring, this redemptive take to all of those art forms.
No.
But to have, hip hop and comedians and great preachers influence how you connect to an audience.
Yeah, because they all use words to transfer meaning, significance, hope, vision, salvation. They all are using lyrics and words and phrases and tone and intonation and melody and all of that's preaching. So everything we just talked about, as a matter of fact, this would be a great preaching masterclass session. The power of the preacher, the comedian, and the rap artist, and how the usage of lyrics and melody and tone and rhythm and inflection shape the message that we're trying to communicate.
Yeah. I tend to think of my main points in my sermon title as my chorus and my illustrations and my diving back into the scripture for the context as my verses and my bridge.
Yeah.
And then, what in the traditional black church is the hoop. That's like my vamp.
That's the vamp. That's when we're going to turn that thing around.
Yeah.
Let's grow. Yeah.
So, staying in this lane of preaching and communicating.
Yeah.
So, what gave you the idea about the preaching masterclass? How did that come together?
Yeah.
And where do you see that going in terms of you've gone from really surrendering to God's call on your life as a pastor, as a preacher, but you care deeply about equipping other communicators, other preachers.
I just think about all the things that I've learned, not necessarily in the classroom, but in the green room. So when I'm hanging out with preachers and we're telling stories, Efrem, how do you put your sermon together? Brian Loritz, how do you find illustrations? Tony Evans, how do you structure your thoughts? And you get some of that in the classroom and in seminary if you're in those spaces. But I just thought, man, if I could create a green room like atmosphere where preachers talk about how they do what they do, why they do what they do, that shaped me, informed me significantly. I can imagine what that could do for other preachers, other communicators, the next generation of preaching. I'm also concerned about the art form and the craft and the ministry of the preacher. I think there needs to be more intentionality and more investment in the next generation of those that will be carrying this message to the world, to my grandkids. Who's going to be preaching to them? I want to start getting these young guys and these young ladies and begin to invest in them early to ensure the transfer of the message of that book, to make sure that the next generation receives the book in tow and intact so that they're ready to tell the greatest story that's ever been told. Yeah.
How do you approach your balance between wanting to be deeply biblical and very relevant so that people can take these messages home with them and this is meat that they can chew on in real life?
Yeah, I think as we look at the scriptures, I don't think there's a contradiction there. To be honest, I think Jesus models it so significantly. He would take these just highly conflicted concepts and challenging ideas about the kingdom of God and it coming to earth and him being the bread of life and my blood is going to be poured. What are you talking? So he would have these complex concepts, but he would say, okay. You know farming, right? Agriculture. It's like this. When a farmer puts his hand in the plow, he's not going to turn around and take his hands off the plow and look back. He wouldn't be fit, right? That's like the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is like a farmer who's put his hand to the plow. You don't turn around. You don't quit. You don't stop. He would take these complex ideas and break them down in these parables and tell stories that point to a greater story. And I think on our best days, that's what preachers are doing. We're telling the greatest story that's ever been told, and we're doing it with intentionality, with creativity, with innovation, and with the power of God's Spirit. And I think the idea that deep isn't relevant and relevant isn't deep is you just hadn't watched Jesus in the scriptures as he traversed the terrain and hell court and did the Sermon on the Mount. You can't tell me the Sermon on the Mount ain't deep and relevant. That thing is bad.
Yeah. I first met you, we would find ourselves at some of the same conferences on church planting and multi-ethnic ministry and multi-ethnic church development. And so I've talked about you as a preacher. You are the founder of an intentionally multi-ethnic, multicultural church in Southern California. So racial reconciliation, righteousness is a big deal. But the thing that I've been hearing you, it's like what's to me become your mantra lately is discipleship. Yeah. Discipleship. To the point that you see discipleship is the solution to, like, if you want to deal with racism, discipleship. Yes. If you want to deal with political polarization, discipleship. Yes. If you want to deal with why so many of our large metropolitan areas have a large unchurched population, discipleship. So let's start with the issue of just your journey to going, okay, we need to say more. You haven't abandoned racial reconciliation. Yeah. It's just you're convinced that discipleship is how you deal with the issue of racial injustice, racial unrest. And I like it because I feel like one of the things the American church has missed, especially in evangelicalism, is we look at the Great Commission, but we go about the Great Commission as if that part, make disciples of all nations, isn't there. Yeah. Disciple making truly is a cross-cultural, multi-ethnic venture, right? Yeah, yeah. Well,
it has to be if we all gonna come to Jesus, because we're all multi-ethnic, and it has to reach across cultural lines. When you go to college, they have what they call your core curricula for whatever your study is. So these are core classes that you are required to take in order for you to fulfill the commitments of that major. And then they have like your extracurricular classes. These are things that aren't a part of your core curriculum, but just good for you to get if you can get a chance to take this class. So some people have extracurricular classes on bowling or golfing or, different philosophy classes or different things like that. I think for so long, to our detriment, we've treated the conversation of race and racial reconciliation and racial justice as an extracurricular activity. If you get some extra time in your life before you die, you might want to read a book or two or look at something on that. And it's just not the case. And it has produced the kind of cultural divide and segregation and gaps of ability to understand and see one another, and breeds this racism, white supremacy. It's been able to live because we've had such a soft discipleship that didn't require this as core competency. So loving your neighbor as yourself is a core competency of how God describes what it is for us to live for him and to be a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't see how you can love your neighbor and not have develop a competency of racial reconciliation or the differences that races have. Because fundamentally, in order to love me well, you've got to know me. And to know me is to discover and to see the burdens that I carry. And as a black man in America, you've got to know the burden that I carry is this abusive relationship that we've had with America from the absolute very beginning. It's not that I don't love America. I'm just not proud of everything that it does. And we are patriots. We're just different kinds of patriots. We are able to see America for who she's ideally called to be, and the gaps and the problems and the things that show up that are there. So to love me, to know me, is to be aware of that burden as a black culture, as a black man that I carry in that experience. And then you're invited in that moment to see that burden and not be that burden. I think with a lot of our relationships and a lot of our racial issues, we're not loving well. So I think it's a lack of understanding of what the vision of love really is, and to know that a part of following Jesus is a part of being a part of a family, an unexpected family, a family where people that don't look alike, don't live alike, don't vote alike are together. And our pursuit to love one another requires that we see and understand the dynamics and the burdens of race and reconciliation, and that we call out systemic injustice. If I'm your brother, you're my sibling, And if something is perpetually burdening you or holding you back or have created trauma, oh, if it's a problem for you and you're my sibling, it's a problem for me. I think once we start to look at it like that and allow that to shape how we disciple and how we give the vision of what Christianity is, this idea of loving God and loving my neighbor and unpacking what love is, I think it changes us, man. I think we're trying to start the conversation on race at the issue of race, and we've got to start the conversation on race at the issue of love. Yeah. Parenthetically, my book that will be coming out March 8th, 2022 is called How We Love Matters. It's a book on love and race. Just a little plug right there.
I'm glad you put that in.
Come on now, a little plug.
But first of all, I'm glad you have a book coming out, man.
Yes.
This is, man.
Took me a long time, but I'm finally here.
You know, but I'm glad. I'm hoping now, you'll put out books like Prince put out albums.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't know if they'll be any good, but I'm gonna put them out. Most people don't read them anyway. You just got to have a good cover and a good title and a good tour, and people will buy them.
That's probably true.
That's what I'm praying for anyway. Yeah. No, that's good.
Well, man. Well, first of all, thank you for giving this time today.
No, this has been a fun conversation.
I appreciate it. And I hope we can do this again.
Yes.
And so as we get ready, I always do this part like it's ending, but I do it in kind of black preaching style.
Okay.
Like we're coming to our close.
Come on. I'm coming to a close.
Yeah. We ain't done yet, but we almost done.
Almost there.
Yeah. All right. See, we need an organ. It'd be so much better.
Yes.
So this podcast is called City Beats, based on a book I read a few years ago by Philip Jenkins, The Next Christendom, where he talked about, basically the future of the church having to focus on the reality that the majority of people on this planet live in urban centers and metroplexes.
Yeah.
And that's even going to be more true. That more and more we are in this ever-increasing multicultural, multi-ethnic, metropolitan reality. That's your mission field as well as mine. So what should churches in metroplexes, in diverse mission fields, be thinking as we're coming out of this COVID season into, in a lot of ways, the great unknown? I know there's some people talking about, we'll be back to normal. We're getting back to normal. I can't see a back to something.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out, how do we prepare the church as pastors for what's on the horizon?
Yeah. I heard Rick Warren say a couple of months ago that coming out of COVID, there's going to be a tsunami of grief. I think people have experienced levels of loss, and if the church can be positioned and postured just to simply reach hurting people, just to love on people, and to become a place that is designed for people in pain, that has become a place where we target and identify people who are hurting. If you are hurting, if you're in pain, this is the place for you. And I think in our churches, if we committed to that kind of vision and value and that kind of posture and got ready, if we open our arms, I think our arms are going to be filled for many years to come, because I think there are a lot of hurting people that are looking for hope and looking for help.
Yeah. And as we close, tell us the name of the book that's coming out again next year.
How We Love Matters, a book on love and race.
How We Love Matters comes out next year in March. Until then, you can buy Killing Us Softly by Efrem Smith.
Come on.
Buy as many of those as you want, but then make sure you're saving some money for Albert Tate's book coming out next month. So I hope that around that time you should come back on.
I'll be back.
And we'll promote that, and we'll make sure that we're getting that word out.
Come on, let's go.
Man, love you, preacher.
Love you too, my man. Peace.
Hey, thank you for joining us again on City Beats. Hey, and tell people about this. You can subscribe on YouTube. Hey, you can subscribe to the Apple Podcast, right? Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family members, tell people you don't even like. Their life might get changed through this maybe. So let them know about City Beats, and we hope to see you on the next episode.